I'm Jeff Biggs. This is NBC Sports Radio.
And in keeping with the Miami Dolphins theme, I would like everyone to know that Dan Kilgore, their new center, is going to be joining me in just a few minutes, about 12:15 or so. And he's going to talk about being traded from the 49ers and all sorts of things that I've got here on Tri-Cities Sports Now. Former Dobbins Bunny Indian Dan Kilgore will be joining us right pronto here. I'm Marky Billson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-Cities sports fans. The name of the program is Tri-Cities Sports Now. We own the Tri-Cities on 1420 NBC, Sports Radio Tri-Cities. We say Tri-Cities a lot, huh? Don't we? Also on today's show, in the next hour, we're going to talk to our old friend Jerry Bonkowski about the upcoming race in Martinsville. It's the STP 500 and all the great hot dogs that they sell there at that Virginia track. However, I want to begin and go right into Marky's monologue today and just the results of yesterday's NCAA tournament. Anyone else see the irony in the fact that the same day John Currie is officially dismissed as a Tennessee employee, University of Tennessee employee, Bruce Weber advances to the Elite Eight with a victory against Kentucky? Now, if you're not aware, before Currie was the AD at Tennessee, he was the AD at Kansas State. I think most fans are aware of that. And while he was there, he controversially allowed Frank Martin, now the coach at South Carolina, to go to South Carolina. It was perceived he was bully coach. The Wildcats players were all in uproar. They were going to quit. And he brings in Bruce Weber, who had taken Illinois in 2005 to the national title game. And today, that coaching hire looks real, real good. And all that stands in the way of Weber in Final Four is Loyola, which they shouldn't take lightly. However, it's an 11 seed. How difficult will it be for Tennessee fans if K-State goes to the Final Four by defeating the very team that knocked the Tennessee Volunteers out of the NCAA tournament? Especially when it also comes on the day when it is disclosed that Tennessee could have hired Mike Leach as their head football coach instead of the unproven Jeremy Pruitt. Only Chancellor Beverly Davenport got in the way and left her athletic director out to dry. Hey, what are you doing? What's going on? Instead of letting him hire who he wanted to. Wait, Mike Leach? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I hadn't heard from you in 6 hours, but hey, you're hiring Mike Leach instead of throwing a fit over an AD acting independently. See, Curry's an easy scapegoat for Tennessee fans, but should he be? Okay, sure, Greg Schiano is a bad coach. Maybe not a bad coach, but he was a bad choice. And that initial choice, be it Jimmy Haslam getting his ear, whatever reason, it cost Curry his job, that choice of his first choice for Tennessee Volunteers athletic director. For first choice as Tennessee Volunteers football coach. What am I talking about? Athletic director. But if the athletic director, Curry, had been allowed to hire Leach, then the coaches that turned down the Vols and all that week of chaos is forgotten if the Vols bring in Mike Leach. That's a home run hire. Biggest name it would have been to come into Knoxville to coach the football team since John Majors. Instead, the Vols caved into Phil Fulmer's interference, pretended it was 1998 again, and then wound up with a coordinator. A good coordinator, but a coordinator nevertheless. When Fulmer became the athletic director at Tennessee, all the potential coaching candidates with head coaching experience, they all went away. The implication of hiring coordinator coach the Vols is that Fulmer will have a hands-on role with the football program, which he hasn't denied. Now, okay, there could be worse things than having, I guess, Phil Fulmer give his input on the Tennessee football program. At least it would seem that way. But remember, you're getting 2018 Phil Fulmer. You're not getting 1998 Phil Fulmer. You're getting 2018 Phil Fulmer, which is 10 years after 2008 Phil Fulmer, and that's where the demise of Tennessee football began. It's also 5 years after 2013 Phil Fulmer, who, given the opportunity to hire East Tennessee State's football coach, hired a 61-year-old who hadn't had a head coaching job in 13 years, and then the Buccaneers won 11-22 in the next 3 years under that coaching hire. Speaking, of course, of Carl Torbush. And a point here is that, when you are yesterday's coach, you hire, or yesterday's, when you're in your 60s, you tend to hire yesterday's coach. Carl Torbush was yesterday's coach. Phil Fulmer, obviously, hasn't coached in 10 years. He's yesterday's coach. Now given the athletic director position at Tennessee. And this is not the way that contemporary college athletics are going. We've talked about this time and time again. This is a hire that speaks of yesterday. Just as replacing Currie with Fulmer is hiring yesterday. Meanwhile, Currie's hire of Tony Vitello to coach the Vols baseball team has Tennessee 13-9 on the regular season. If the Vols continue winning baseball games at this rate, it'll be the baseball team's highest winning percentage since 2005. Similarly, Currie's hire of Chris Woodruff as men's tennis coach has the Vols at 15-4. This is after 2 straight losing seasons. And 3 years ago, a mediocre 14-13. Men's tennis team at Tennessee is on for its best record since 2011. So let's get this right. Winning baseball coach, winning tennis coach, Bruce Weber at Kansas State. Currie, hearing the wishes of Tennessee fans, also restored the Lady Vols nicknames to all of Tennessee's women's athletic teams, bucking a common trend that would have such a moniker described as sexist. So Currie stood up to political correctness. My kind of guy. Granted, Schiano was a poor initial choice. But Leach would have been a home run hire had Davenport not squelched it. And frankly, remember this about the Tennessee football coaching position. It just isn't what it once was. Granted, it's tough on the Vols fan psyche to even consider that coaches might actually rather be at Purdue, Oklahoma State, NC State than good old Tennessee. But that's the way it played out. That's what it is. And in the case of Les Miles, unemployment was considered superior to working as the Vols head coach. Evidently, though, Washington State is not a more desirable place than Tennessee, so at least you got that. So it boils down to if you'd rather have Mike Leach, younger, hipper, innovative, in control of the football program, or Phil Fulmer, running on memories. And I'm going to remind you, Currie's hires Weber, Vitello, as well as Woodruff. He's 3-0. Fulmer hired Carl Torbush. He's 0-1. Folks, Dan Kilgore is going to be coming on very shortly. We'll talk more about this later on in the hour, but we're going to go pro football now. And one of the men of the hour, that's Dan Kilgore. Tri-City Sports Now coming back after this. Watch us on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-City's Facebook page if you're watching right now. Provides regional artists and craftspeople with a space